Welcome to Yori 110. This is a bonus lesson. Now, the reason this is a bonus lessons in our programs typically are something that's related to the main program. It's a little bit different. Sometimes it doesn't quite follow the same format, and sometimes it's not on quite exactly the same topic, and this is one of those. So, Yori 110, the bonus session, we've been talking about relationship principles as they apply to business, as they have their business versions, but they follow the same essential pattern. If you get any of the Yori programs, Yori 101, Yori 110, any of them, the 200 level, 300 level, if you attend the live training or any of the intensives, even though it's focused on relationships, commonly focused on romances, the principles of relationship, the principles of romances apply to any relationship. It's just a matter of what percentage of it applies and to what degree it applies. And there's things that each type of relationship can learn from other relationships. Because very often we just sort of assume that, well, this is a different kind of thing. And we finished up last time talking about the idea that business may be business, but business people are still people. And we also talked about the idea that personal relationships, friendships, and romances have a lot to learn from business relationships. That there are things that we'll do with a romantic partner, there's things that we will do with friends that we would never think of doing with a customer, with a boss, with a coworker, because we know the costs would be too high. Very often it could cost us our career. It could cost us a great team member. It could cost us a big client. And yet when it's a member of our family, when it's a romantic partner, when it's a friend, we don't consider the possibility that it might cost us. That we don't consider the possibility that we're making someone else pay a price for being in relationship with us. For Yori 110, the bonus lesson, we're talking about relationships and romances in a professional environment. So we're talking about what happens now when it is a personal relationship. It's a relationship based on friendship. It's a relationship that has a romantic component to it, but it's happening or it's starting in a workplace. And that creates some sometimes rather sticky complications. If you think about when you were a kid, when you were in school, where did you make most of your friends? Most kids make most of their friends in school. If you don't make your friends in school, you might make your friends because you lived in the neighborhood with them, because you were involved on the soccer team or the Little League team, or you're involved in your martial arts class, or you're involved at church, that there was something that you did together. There was a regular place that you met with regular things that you did, and very commonly the grown-ups would make time or make arrangements for you to get together if it wasn't something that was related to school that you were going to be at anyway. As we get older, it should probably be very little surprise a lot of our relationships might begin at the workplace. So we're going to talk about relationships at the workplace. Having good whole person to whole person relationships in the workplace is good. So that I'm more than my cog in the machine and you are more than your cog in the machine. I'm Scott, you're you. And some people, since people will leave leaders. And remember the numbers, 70 to 80%, 78% in two of the different surveys I've recently seen, leave their leaders. They leave the culture. So having a good whole person to whole person connection with people helps keep your best people. It's important for leadership to have these kind of whole person connections. To have these whole person connections with team members, treating the team members as whole people. Now in this context, this is something that leaders sometimes have a problem with. This includes admitting to mistakes. Now here gets to be one of those interesting things that we have to consider sometimes. Leaders very often don't like to admit their mistakes to their followers. Because they feel like, well, I'm supposed to be infallible. I don't want them to know that I made a mistake. Well, here's the thing. They already know you made a mistake. Your mistake is already known. People know about it. And they know it was a mistake. The thing that they don't know, the thing that they want to know, is do you know you made a mistake? Do you know you did something wrong? Do you know you made a bad call? And there's a natural tendency in people with strong personalities to not want to admit that they were wrong, to justify it, to rationalize it, to blame other people, to play the victim. Oh, it was bad if it was the economy. Oh, it was. But if the people on your team know, no, that was you. You're warning them, expect more of these mistakes from me. If you just admit it, at least they know that you know. So that gets to be one of those interesting things. And the higher up in leadership you go, the more commonly you'll run into this. The stronger the personality, the less willing someone is to admit that they're wrong generally, the less likely they are to get into higher levels of leadership. But one of the curious things that happens is even people who, when they were at lower levels of leadership, were more willing to admit their mistakes, as they climb up in leadership, stop admitting their mistakes, which is kind of a curious thing, because we recognize when we're dealing with human beings, do you like to have relationships with people who blow it and then won't admit that they blew it? That made a bad call and won't admit they made a bad call? That always have someone else to blame? That always come after you? I mean, we know that at a human level. Somehow we forget that at a leadership level. Well, everyone understands that businesses do need to make a profit. In the context of the relationships, they want to know if it's profits over people, that you're willing to sacrifice people for the sake of profits, not because it's a difference between being profitable or not profitable, but because it's a difference between could we make even more money so long as we mess with these people. If we show ingratitude to those people, can we slash our manpower, to slash our man hours so that we can make an extra couple of $1 million when the CEO is making $12 million. They want to know, are you willing to sacrifice people for the sake of even more profits? Or do you put people over profits? That, yeah, maybe we could make a little bit more if we were a bit more cutthroat. Yeah, maybe we could make a little more if we didn't acknowledge you as people. If we just treated you as cogs in the machine, yeah, we could make more money. But the people are important to us. And that we are willing to make a little less money to take better care of our people. That we are willing to invest in our people. And they expect a balance. I mean, they don't expect people to be put so far over profits that you're willing to go out of business in order to keep your people. But they do expect a balance between the two. Now, one of the big things, of course, people will be listening to this one for is about romances. They want to know romances in the workplace. What do we do about romances? Because romances are a different matter. Romances in the workplace are a different kind of thing because when romances go bad, sometimes that's a big problem. In fact, one of the surest ways to lose great team members is to have them get romantically involved. Because with stunning regularity, when a romance goes bad, one, the other, or both will leave the company. So ex-romantic partners in our culture have a very difficult time working together. Many companies will have fraternization policies to address this, and if your company has a fraternization policy, follow the policy. If the policy includes consequences for violating the policy, expect to pay the price as stated in the fraternization policies. Romances between superiors and subordinates is always a problem. If it's the superior initiating the romantic contact, then you have to wonder, is the subordinate responding of their own free will because they're interested back? Or is the subordinate responding with a little bit of, how much is my job on the line if I say yes versus I say no? How much will this affect my promotions? How much will this affect my assignments? How much will this affect my job review? What's going to be the impact on me? And it makes it a little bit more problematic because of the power dynamic involved. If someone's in the direct chain of command, that always creates a problem because of the power dynamics. If it's a direct superior, if it's someone who has direct impact on this person's career, on this person's work, especially if the person is your direct report, it's not even just that they're down the chain of command. This is someone you see all the time. This is someone who has to report to you. This can be a problem. Now, if you already have that relationship, and then you start to work together, well, that can be different, of course, because you're not initiating it. But even in that context, if the romance goes bad, very often that's going to affect one, the other, or both careers. And it's not just necessarily that turns it messy and people get fired, or it gets weird and someone has to get fired, but people quit. People ask for transfers. That people feel uncomfortable in those situations. Even not in the direct chain of command, a difference in authority levels can be problematic. Because again, it goes back to the wondering how much of an impact is this going to have on my career? That yeah, I don't report to you, but you're a couple of levels above me in the organization. That this might still impact me. I'm not 100% sure how safe I am saying yes versus no, versus what if we give it a shot and things go bad, what if I'm not interested? So you always have to be aware of things like that. Might there be potential career impacts? And this is part of why companies have fraternization policies. Typical fraternization policies, if you're in the direct chain of command, you cannot initiate a relationship down. If you are in a direct chain of command, very often they'll have a general policy. You can't be involved in the romance at all, period. Whether the higher person or the lower person in the chain of command initiates or not, because there's really no way to know for sure who initiates what. If someone is one level above, it's off. Generally speaking, if someone's 2 levels above, and of course this is talking about a multi-level hierarchy, whether you're in the direct chain of command or not, it's very common for companies to say you can't have a romance if you're 2 levels different in your hierarchy. However, coworker to coworker, generally speaking, if there's no power dynamic, then they're not as worried about it. But there's issues to consider when there is a power dynamic, most notably a sexual harassment suit. And sexual harassment suits depends upon whether the advances are welcome or unwelcome. And one of the odd things, and it kind of idiosyncratic, is the one initiating the contact doesn't always know if it was welcome or unwelcome. The recipient defines it. So say, for instance, if I'm gently picking up on one of my subordinates, and my subordinate is really nice and they're really receptive, but they're nice and receptive because they're afraid it's going to have an adverse impact on their career. So they go talk to human resources to find out, okay, is there something I can do about this? Because it makes me uncomfortable. I feel like I have to be nice because we work together, but what do I do about it? And if it ultimately leads to a discharge or a separation of some sort, that could be a sexual harassment suit. Especially if you're the person that the person would report a sexual harassment to. And then that creates a double problem. That's part of why a lot of times reporting policies will have at least 2 separate places you can go to report, because if the person that you're supposed to report it to is responsible for the harassment, you need an alternative. Here's a big one, though. And this is something a lot of times we don't think about. Favoritism. So what if I have influence over someone's career and I'm romantically involved with them, and so I show favoritism? I give them the best assignments. I give them better reviews. I recommend them for performances. I recommend them for choice projects. So showing favoritism when a relationship is going on can be an issue. Misuse of authority or influence. This can become an issue. This can be for or against. That I might use the authority that I have in a company or the influence I have with others in the company to affect that person in their career, in their work here, either positively or negatively. I make, suggestions, recommendations, in one way or the other. depending upon whether the romance is going well or not. And so this happens sometimes in companies. Thus, of course, the fraternization policies. Now, all that said, like, well, just don't do it then. Stay away from the workplace. Well, between 10 and 20% of marriages start in a workplace relationship. So of the relationships that make it all the way to marriage, between 1 out of 10 up to 1 out of 5 began in the workplace. So you go, all right, well, it's easy to just make the blanket statement, well, just stay away from the workplace. But as a practical matter, if up to 1 in 5 romances is beginning in the workplace, well, we need to know what to do with this. Because as a practical matter, it is what is happening. So what do we do? Obviously, it can be done because it's being done. And when you understand how many first dates lead to relationships, how many relationships ultimately lead to a marriage, and up to 1 out of 5 of those are coming out of a workplace romance, then you go, okay, well, there's some workplace romances going on then. And a lot of them. For every marriage, there was probably 7 or 8 romances. For every 7 or 8 romances, there was probably 7 or 8 first dates. About 1 out of every 42 first dates intended to lead to a relationship. It's different if you're just kind of going out with friends or kind of dating casually. But if you're dating because you're looking for a romance, you have about a 1 in 42 chance that any given first date has the probability of leading ultimately to marriage, and up to 1 out of 5 of marriages are starting in the workplace. So who knows how many relationships are starting in the workplace. So to do it well, you really need to know what you're doing. Or you need to be lucky, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're relying on luck. So, about these romances that start in the workplace. It makes sense that 1 out of 5 marriages would start in the workplace. You spend 40 hours a week with these people. If you spend 40 hours a week with these people in a full-time job, you're in proximity for more waking hours than you are with anybody else. Basically, it's the adult version of kids in school. If you think about how many relationships did you build in school, how many of your friendships started in school in some scheduled thing that you knew you were going to be there on a regular basis, versus how many friendships did you have when you were a kid that started almost more randomly than that you went someplace different than you usually went looking for friends, that you went someplace different than what was a regular scheduled thing, looking for people to have romances with, looking for people to hang out with. For almost everybody, almost all of our relationships we got because we had some activity in common, like school, like church, like your martial arts class, like your sports team, like even family gatherings where you might be introduced by other people. And so if you know that happened a lot when you were kids, and think about your percentages, how many of them came through your regular activities versus how many of your relationships didn't come through your regular activities, you understand that this is going to happen. And so since most people don't see anyone more than 40 hours a week, other than people that they work with or people they already live with, if you have a romance that begins at work, it's generally a good idea to keep that romance out of the office, even though most of your time together is going to be at the office. So my suggestion, if you need to do that, is keep the romance out of the relationship as long as possible. Don't start with the romance. Add the romance on at the end. So here's the basic process here. Deepen the co-worker relationship. Co-worker to co-worker. We work together. It is perfectly appropriate to have a co-worker to co-worker relationship that supports the team and supports the work being done. A co-worker to co-worker relationship that supports the team and supports the work being done enhances the company culture. It's a good thing. keep it at the coworker to coworker level, and it's helping the company. Remember, it doesn't go bad usually until the romance begins to interfere with business decisions, until an ex-romance begins to interfere with business decisions. So whether you're interested in someone romantically or not, deepen your coworker relationship first. Offer the crush or an attraction. Starts when there's some good qualities. There's some things about somebody you like. There's some things about someone you're attracted to. But then we fill in the rest with romantic fantasy. We imagine, oh, what would it be like being in a romance with this person, being in a relationship with this person, being a part of this person's life. If you start to hear stories about some of the exciting things that they've done, you hear stories about some of their high points, some of their wants, some of their desires, even that they're just an attractive human being to you, and something about them intrigues you. That romantic fantasy tends to fill in gaps with fantasies. Now, if you think about the average person, if you go on dates trying to look for relationships, that you figure there's about a 1 in 8 chance any given date is going to lead to even a short-term romance. And if you're dating to get married, you're actually looking for that permanent relationship. You understand that 1 out of 7 dating relationships, serious relationships here, will ultimately lead to marriage. That you understand, okay, so in most of the cases, the dates aren't going further than just dates. And in most cases, the serious relationships aren't going to marriage. And of course, we know marriages don't necessarily last either. And so when we put all of this in context, we understand that going in, people have more hope than the reality they face when they're in there justifies. So just get to know the person. Get to know the person. That's a lot of what happens while you're dating someone. You're getting to know them. And in 7 out of 8 cases, as you get to know someone, you realize that you really don't want to take it further. You don't want to take this romance all the way to a marriage. One, the other, or both realize this. So just get to know the person as a whole person in the context of the coworker relationship. And there's a fairly decent chance that you'll end up ultimately resolving your feelings. That you can find out a significant portion of the things that might ultimately lead to a breakup in an early romance in a coworker relationship. That you might be intrigued by somebody, but over the course of a fairly short amount of time, say if I have a woman that I'm attracted to at work, and I'm inclined to want to ask her out. And I think if I did ask her out, that there's at least enough interest there, or at least she's open enough to it, that she'd be happy to go out with me. And that we're kind of looking at possibly starting a romance. But as I maintain the relationship at more of a friendly coworker level, then I discovered that her idea of a vacation, her idea of a recreation is to go hiking and camping off in the middle of the woods. That for her, what she likes to do is to get a light tent, and she likes to pack everything up in a backpack, and she likes to go hiking up into the wilderness, and that she likes to, find some of her own food and build a campfire, and that to her, that's recreation. And I'm thinking, okay, well, on my side, I'm not much of a fisher or a hunter or a camper or a hiker. That, a day hike might be nice, but, taking 5 days in the wilderness to go do a 50-mile hike and, getting up every day and hiking 10 to 15 miles, that's just not what I count as fun. Well, then what's happened? I've already resolved the romance without having a romance. Imagine if every single time we have a free weekend, she wants to head off to the woods. And for me, when we have a free weekend, I want to go to dinner, I want to go to a show, I want to go to Vegas, I want to go to Disneyland, and that she doesn't really care for that kind of stuff. And then she finds out, like, oh, okay, so you're one of those resortists. You like doing the resorts, you like doing the shows, you like doing the dinners. Well, my idea of a nice dinner is one that you caught earlier that day. That, you fished for it and you caught it, you cleaned it. For me, that's the ultimate meal. And I'm thinking, well, for me, going out to a nice restaurant and ordering food off of a nice menu is the ultimate meal. Then we already know that, okay, that's probably really not going to work. Or even a simpler thing is we find out that, I like one style of music, she likes a completely different style of music. Especially if I find that she hates my style of music. Then, okay, well then we can resolve the romance at a coworker to coworker level as we learn about each other as whole people, so that we know a romance would have ended had we started one. And so basically, it's like pre-breaking up with someone. If you know you do not want to ever, ever, ever be in a relationship with a smoker, and you find out someone's a smoker, don't start, right? If you want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't already have kids at home that they're taking care of, and you find out someone has kids at home they're taking care of, well, don't start. And so if you find out that someone is a package deal, that there's this whole thing that comes with this person, and you can find that out beforehand, well, then don't start. So there's one young lady and I were having a discussion, and she was explaining that one of her problems is she kind of needs someone from her subcultural heritage group, because the way things work in her subcultural heritage is the family is the whole extended family. It's not just your nuclear family. And if someone gets seriously involved with her, that it's not just her as an individual, it's the whole family. And if you're not part of that particular subcultural group, if you don't have a related heritage, you're an outsider. And that would create problems for him and problems for her. And she kind of recognizes that she kind of needs to look there first, because there's this whole package deal that comes with her that's not just her. It's her, it's her siblings, it's her parents, it's her grandparents, it's her aunts and uncles and cousins and second cousins, and all the people that aren't technically related to you, but they all count. And they're all part of the package. And that she recognizes that. And if you can find something like that out beforehand, as co-workers, then you can resolve the romance without having to have the romance, and then all of the awkwardness, all of the weirdness that often comes when you have a romance that ends. Now I'm going to pause here for a moment because I really want to underscore this. The prompt principle. The prompt principle. It's a powerful principle used in all of your relationships. If you don't already know the prompt principle, I want you to get this down. Now if you already attended my programs, if you've already listened to everything and you remember all the material, this won't be new to you. But if this is new to you, make sure you get this down. The prompt principle: one relationship prompts all others. One relationship prompts all others. The idea of the prompt principle is anything you get anywhere, you use everywhere it might apply. It's a variation on embrace, elevate, expand, where you get something in one place, you flip it to its positive counterpart, you elevate it to its highest level, you expand it to every place that principle is useful. If you have an attraction outside your primary relationship, you use any desires that outside attraction might stir up, and you take it back to your primary relationship or your primary relationships. So this is a powerful principle to use in all our relationships. The prompt principle: one relationship prompts all others. Now here's the version here. When there's someone we might feel an attraction for, we often feel like doing something for that person, doing special things for that person, being exceptionally nice for that person, wanting them to get access to extra perks, special perks. And when that person is not your primary relationship, now here's where my controversy comes from in here, it's still okay to feel what you feel. It's okay to feel the attraction. It's okay to feel the prompt. But, big but, you should use the desire to do something special. That desire you have for that extra thing, that extra contact, that extra bonus, that extra convention, that extra whatever it is, use that desire that you have as a prompt to take it to your primary relationship. In a professional environment, what we're talking about is you use any desire to do something especially nice. You use any desire to do something special or unique or upgraded for a particular person that you may feel an attraction for as a prompt. It's a prompt to look for people who deserve something special for professional reasons, not for personal reasons, and to give them the proper acknowledgement. It's your opportunity when you feel like doing something special for one person to do something special for the whole team. If you're looking at something like, oh, you know, this person's birthday is coming up, you know, it'd be nice to like have a nice lunch for them. Like, oh, you know, that might be a nice thing to do for everybody on the team. So whenever anyone's having a birthday, maybe we should do like a birthday lunch for team members. Even if you got the idea initially because there was someone that you felt an attraction for, and you wanted to do something special for them because you felt an attraction for them, that the idea that you get of, oh, let's do this cool thing for this person. Why? Because I like them. Instead of thinking, well, you know, actually that'd be a good thing to do for everybody on the team. So maybe we'll make it a lunch thing. Or you might think, oh, well, we can't do like a full-on lunch for everyone on the team. But you know, the whole acknowledge people's birthday thing, that might be a good thing to do. Maybe a simpler thing is, you know, we'll do a monthly cake for every month that someone has a birthday. And we'll just have like an acknowledgement of someone's birthday, and we'll give some kind of a modest gift. Maybe a $25 gift card someplace. And we'll have cake one day. And the idea that initially comes because you had this attraction and it prompted you to want to do something special can then lead to the idea that helps create good whole person co-worker relationships. And then obviously this is a principle that you're going to use toward your primary relationship. So say if you're married, or say you already have a serious relationship, but you're attracted to somebody at work. You're attracted to your boss or someone up higher level in the company. You're attracted to one of your peers. You're attracted to someone somewhere down lower on the authority chain at your company. And that you have these desires. Well, take those desires home and do an appropriate home version. Or take those desires into your primary romance and do something like that in your primary romance. Use these outside prompts, these emotional desires that you have, to enhance your primary relationship. One of the examples that I've used in a different seminar set is, suppose I'm on my way home, I've stopped off at the grocery store to get stuff, and I glance, so I see a beautiful woman, so whatever my standards are of beauty, that I find that woman attractive, and she stops and she's looking up and down at the flowers. And I can tell that she's thinking, oh, you know, it would be nice if I had someone who would buy me flowers. And I'm thinking, well, I would like to buy you flowers. But she's not my primary relationship. She might not be anybody's primary relationship. She might not have a flower-type relationship with anybody. But if I do, I go, you know, my initial prompt was this other woman. I go, but you know what? Flowers would be a good idea. Now, I might have that initial plan. I'd like to buy her flowers because I find her attractive. But she's not my romantic partner. All right, well, she's not getting flowers. Why? It's not my place in her life. But there is someone where it is my place in her life. Let me buy her flowers. And I might have gotten the idea because I saw something outside. But that's okay. Just like my dad used to bring my mom flowers because there was this guy who would come by selling flowers. And my mom knew if she got a rose brought home to her, it's not that he stopped off somewhere on the way home because she knows what his schedule is. There isn't a florist that's open when he gets off of work. That means that this guy came by the office and he would habitually buy something from him and then bring the flower home. Same kind of thing. There's a prompt. In that case, the prompt was a salesperson. Wherever the prompt comes from, if you use it as a prompt to upgrade your performance with your primary relationships, whether we're talking your primary relationships is a work relationship because you have the impulse to do something at work, or whether your primary relationship is an existing romance or a more relevant friendship, that any place you get an idea can be good. what you do with the idea, where you take that idea, how you apply that idea in your life to enhance an existing relationship where that is your proper role, is a good use of those kind of impulses. We're talking about deepening of the co-worker relationship. Closely related to this, and still staying away from romance, is to deepen the friendship. It's not inappropriate to deepen a friendship. By deepening both the professional and then the non-romantic personal relationship, you can get to know someone more deeply without becoming embroiled in a romance. Remember, again, the prompt principle. Get to know the whole team. So when you feel this impulse, like, oh, I want to get to know this person more, on a personal level. Well, talk to them at the company parties and the company picnic and it's the company outings and on the special events and get to know them better. Well, that's fine. Use that as a prompt to get to know everybody on your team better, to get to know all of your coworkers better. It's the prompt principle again. So use it as a prompt, and it's perfectly okay for everybody to be better friends, for everybody to connect on more and more of life, because we're all whole people living whole lives. And if I come to work for you, how much of me do you employ? Do you just employ a third of me? 8 hours of my day, you get a third of my time? Or is my whole human being there? And you may find things out about my motivations. You might find things out about my skill sets. You might find out some things that can help the company that you might never know if we don't get to know each other beyond the job description and the key performance indicators of my job. You might suddenly find out, oh wait, you have what experience? You've done what? Well, we could use that. Or even as simple a thing as a particular talent that I have is being able to put together events fast. And one of the reasons for this is that I have the annual banquets that get held. Now, I'm not supposed to be the one putting those together. That's supposed to go to the black belt team putting together their black belt banquet. Most years, they do a pretty good job. Some years, not so good. Most years, I have competent leadership, and they're familiar enough with putting together events that they just go for it. Or at least one person on the team is good enough that they could put it together. But not always. And so there's been times where we're getting dangerously close. Decisions need to be made. Now, I can sit down and in 2 hours, the thing that sometimes I've been working on for months, I can have done. Now, what if someone finds this out? They go, oh, wow, that would totally solve some of our company problems. If you can put together an event and you can do that for us, that'd be awesome. That'd be amazing. I do the same thing sometimes with demonstrations where I'll turn things over to a team. Most of the time, the team's pretty good at gathering the numbers together and putting them together and making them happen. Every once in a while, the team hasn't done as good a job, and then I'll show up, and in like 10 minutes, I make a list together and say, okay, here's what you do with this group, here's what you do with that group, here's what you do here, 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 and here. And if you want to do some unique numbers, we have room for it here, and here's a few ideas, you can get started, go. And just save them 2 months of work. And if someone finds out, like, oh, you have that talent too, we could use that. We had no idea you could do that. And so sometimes building the friendship, getting to know the whole person, getting to know the whole person with the whole life, sometimes discovers these little treasures where you find that someone has a knack for something you didn't know that they had a knack for. That someone knew how to do something that you didn't know they knew how to do. Or someone has a connection somewhere you didn't know they had a connection. And that could totally make a difference. And so the whole person deepening a friendship in the workplace can be amazing. Can lead to some amazing serendipity. Can lead to some amazing synchronicity. Serendipity is like the happy accident. And the synchronicity is when you have meaningful coincidence that comes together and that like suddenly changes things for the better. And so deepening friendships in a work environment can be a great thing, even if it's prompted because someone had a crush on somebody else. But deepen your friendships. Get to know each other more as people. Sometimes in the process, what you discover is that someone has a particular need. And they have a particular need that other people might want to do something with and help out with if they knew. And then now they know. There's something they can do. There's something they would like to do if they knew. And as you deepen your friendships, then you can know. And then, of course, as you deepen your friendships, again, you might be able to resolve a romance without ever having a romance. Because, again, you're back to that idea. If 1 out of 8 dates intended to lead to a relationship, people are dating, looking for relationships, if 7 out of 8 of those are going to end, it's better if you can pre-end it without going into it so you don't have all the weirdness. And if 6 out of 7 serious romances will not lead to marriage, will eventually lead to a breakup, and you could resolve some percentage of those without having the romance, then again, you can avoid the weirdness, you can avoid the problems that can come with an ex-romance in your workplace. So tread slowly into a romance. I'm going to say that again. Tread slowly into a romance. Keep in mind, if we're dating, on about 1 in 8 first dates leads to a relationship. Only about 1 out of 7 relationships leads to a marriage. So about a 1 in 42 chance. And if you figure if that's in your workplace, imagine that's a 41 out of 42 chance that if you have a romance in the workplace, you're going to end up with an ex-romance in the workplace, which often means you have ex-team members now. Get to know someone professionally and personally in a non-romantic context of 8 attractions. You can probably fully resolve the 7 and 8 that would not lead to a romance anyway. That would not lead to a serious relationship anyway, without doing any damage to the company culture. In fact, using the prompt principle, it can even enhance the company culture. Most dates do not lead to serious relationships. That can be resolved without stepping across the romance line. And for relationships, since only 1 in 7 relationships lead to marriage, getting to know someone deeply in both a professional and a personal non-romantic relationship can let you sort through many of these too. And so instead of having a 41 out of 42 chance of having an ex-romance now in your company, in your organization, possibly costing you important people, keeping in mind that most dates don't lead to relationships, most relationships don't lead to marriage, to understand you don't have to get into a romance with all the messiness that might bring to find out, to learn the things that might be relevant to you in your relationship choices, to find out how this person treats people, to find out what's part of the package, to find out how you might reasonably expect to be treated, to find out how they respond when things go bad, to find out how they deal with problems. Or do they collaborate toward a solution, or do they blame? To find out if they're judgmental, to find out if they make excuses, to find out if they smoke, they drink, to find out what they like to do for recreation, to find out what they like to eat, to find out what comes along with them, without being in the romance to find that out. Romances become big problems when they go into serious relationships and then end in a messy way, that kind of messy way that is common in relationships. Think about your own breakups and the breakups you've seen around you. There's a fairly good chance it was messy. Even the breakups where the breakup itself was very amicable. Did it create any weirdness afterwards? Now, I have a fairly unique case where on my side, there's not much in the way of weirdness with my exes, but that's on my side. There's 2 sides here. I still have very good relationships with most of my exes, if I still have contact with them, we have a good relationship. And even the ones I don't have contact with know that if they showed up, I'd help them out. I'd do what I could. I'd connect with them. We'd have a pleasant chit-chat. We'd catch up with each other. But that's not the usual. So even though in my own personal life I see it one way, in the life around me, I see a lot of messiness. I see a lot of messiness even for people who are still in their romance. And that if they're having messiness in the romance and then they show up at work and they both work here, could that be a problem? Could that impact the work to be done? After romance ends, few ex-partners are able to work closely with one another. It's just part of the way people seem to be built. It's part of what our society teaches and supports. It's how much emotion interferes with your ability to work with and interact with other people. Even fewer are able to comfortably work with an ex who is in a new relationship. And I know I'm one of the exceptions. You may be too. Doesn't mean that your ex is. I can work closely with an ex. I can go back to the relationship we started with fairly comfortably for me, but that's me. Not every ex is able to do that. And certainly when you look at the world around you and you look at the relationships around you, how many of them can genuinely be happy when you're still single, but your ex is now in a new relationship? Maybe in a new relationship with somebody else you know. How well can you handle that? So tread slowly and carefully into romance, if at all. Very slowly. Build into co-worker and friendship relationships first. There's a good chance you'll resolve the relationship there without a mess. Take steps. Now this is a key principle. I'm going to slow down here for a moment. I know it's not a lot in your notes, but let's pause here for a little bit. Take steps you can step back from without making things weird. Then go forward, if at all, only with the most promising, healthy, already grounded relationship. Now I'm going to go back to that statement. Take steps you can step back from without making things weird. So this gets to be one of those things. Suppose I'm working with someone and I invite her out for dinner and a movie, or I invite her out for a weekend in Vegas. That's a pretty big ask. If someone says yes, what does it mean? Does that change things? If someone says no, is that going to make it weird now? So if, and this one's common, where someone has a passionate time, a one-night stand, they're off at a convention, and that's a different scenario, and they're socializing after the event, and people drink, and then you wake up in the morning and think, oh, wow, look what we did. But the Monday morning, you're back in the office. What do? Does that make things weird? That makes things weird for a lot of people. I'd say that makes things weird for most people. Because now things are different, but they're kind of different so spontaneously. You didn't really build up to it. You didn't really build into it. You don't really know, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to the other person? What does it mean about us? Is there an us? Is there not an us? And so sometimes when you get this kind of flash that happens and things are suddenly different, you know things get weird. Now what? But if you take the kind of step where a yes or a no doesn't matter, what happens doesn't matter, that you can step back without it being weird, you can step through without it being weird. That's a fairly safe step to take. And I was just having this discussion with a young man because he was interested in, I'm in my 50s, so and anything under 40 is a young man and a young woman. But he was asking for some advice. And because he knows that things intersect into my world, and that and this is someone that I know and that I'm pretty good friends with, and wanted some advice. And okay, I would like to step things forward, but I know that whether she says yes or no, I'm still going to see her. How? Yeah. And so, I mean, the simple advice came down to this concept. Take steps you can step back from without making things weird. So that if you make a small ask, so if she says no, it doesn't change anything. If she says yes, it doesn't change anything. It allows you to take a tiny step forward, but you can still have your coworker relationship without it getting weird. So can you go out to coffee together or have tea together without things getting weird? And just sit down and chit-chat. I mean, it might be a one-on-one, so it might count as a date, but it's such a light, casual, friendly date that you can do that. Like, you know, for me, there's a woman I'm going to go to the zoo with her. The last person I took to the zoo with me was one of my male clients. The time together is probably going to be pretty much exactly the same. Before that, the person I went out with was the mother of one of my clients. And she was married. And what do? Almost exactly the same thing as with my male client. And so clearly, it's just a relaxed, friendly, professional interaction out of a professional environment. So we have the zoo stuff. It's the San Diego Zoo, one of the most famous zoos in the world, if not the most famous zoo in the world, although I understand Animal Kingdom in Orlando is a pretty good competition. But it's kind of like half zoo, half theme park out there. And so, you know, it's pretty cool. But whether I'm there with a man, I'm there with a woman, whether I'm there with an adult, or I'm there with a minor, I'm there with a family member, I'm there with a romantic prospect, the day looks pretty much the same. So that's a light step to take. So take steps you can step back from without things getting weird. Take steps you can step through to without things getting weird. Now, related to this is relationship with clients, and I'll spend a little less time on this. Relationship with clients is what the whole Yori 110 program has been about, building a business relationship with the clients. With clients, there's an axiom. Be friendly, but not a friend. I'm going to say that one again so you make sure you get it. Be friendly, but not a friend. Now, I don't wholly disagree or agree with this, but it's a good starting policy. Treat people in a friendly manner. Everyone you're friendly with. And friendships will develop slowly and steadily over a great deal of time. So here's one of the scenarios that actually happened to a martial arts colleague. That, you know, he was friendly and a friend. And so he had this new, young, attractive female student, and she said that she was moving and asked if he would come help, that, you know, she didn't have anyone that could help. That, okay, well, you know, that'd be a good friend thing to do. And so he showed up to help, and when he showed up to help, found out that he was the only one there to help. Found out later on, she actually didn't ask anyone else to help, only him. And when he showed up to help, the boyfriend she was breaking up with was there, and she says, you watch out for this guy. He's a black belt. He's going to kick your butt. And he's going, whoa, 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 whoa. Hang on a second. Because that's not what he was signing on for. Now, he thought he was behaving like a friend. But he didn't know her well enough to have an actual friendship here. And so now all of a sudden he's in this confrontation with this ex-boyfriend that he did not sign on for. Now, will most things get that bad? Of course not. They don't go that bad fast. But be friendly, not a friend. Let the friendship develop. Don't just jump in there. So you're friendly to everybody. The secret balance is to be a friendly professional. Connect whole person to whole person. Go ahead and build a friendship. But be aware of what the relationship is and what it is not. If you cross from friendly professional to actual friend, it changes the dynamic of the relationship. It changes what might be expected. It might negatively affect your business. That said, if you do build to a more friend-oriented relationship with a client, do it in a way that is easy to step back from. So, with more than one of my clients, you know, we've had a casual Zoom meeting. You know, it's a nice time to get out of a normal context, be more relaxed, be more casual, connect. We're still talking business, But about half of the time is spent on non-business stuff. Sometimes we're just being social, sometimes we're talking about the animals. But it gives us a chance to have it be more than just business. But we're also not becoming good friends. We're engaging in social activities. We're becoming what you might call a casual friend. But if you get involved in the messier, private, deeply personal parts of a client's life, you have to understand that you might be allowing the relationship to change in a way that could cost you a client. Now, for a lot of people, that's fine. For some people, that might not be fine. Because frankly, I think it's often worth it. But tread slowly and carefully, though. Because just because I think it's worth it doesn't mean it's always worth it. Doesn't mean it's going to be worth it to you, because it depends on the client. Depends how important the client is to your business. And of course, when we get into the realm of romances with clients that end can cost you a client, and maybe more than one. There are a few legal issues with ending a client-professional relationship. It's less costly than losing a valuable team member. There's typically not going to be anything like a sexual harassment suit, but you might have someone that wants to break a contract, that they don't want to do business with you. It's personal, it's not business, but they don't want to do business with you anymore, so it could cost you a client. One of my colleagues has a policy that one of his employees gets involved in a relationship with a client because history shows that the client almost always leaves if the romance goes bad. That what he tells the person is, if you are willing to buy out the client's contract, then you're free to have a relationship with the client. If you are not willing to buy out the client's contract, then you are not free to engage in a romance with a client. Now, if you already know them outside, that's fine. But if you met them through the business, that's not fine. So you have to keep in mind that while losing a client might typically not be a big deal, an individual client might be pivotal to your business. If you get involved with a client that's a significant part of your business, and then the relationship goes bad and the client leaves, well, there goes a significant part of your business. That depending upon who leaves, there's been some of those key employees that are responsible all by themselves for a quarter to a third of a company's business. Sometimes there's individual clients that can be even most of the business that you do. That could be a huge contract. Sometimes it's not even the individual client. It's someone through whom a significant part of the business flows. So it can be dangerous. Like, I had a woman one time who was one of my biggest promoters. It started off with her and her kids, and it's a martial arts client, for her and her kids. And then she said, well, this is awesome. And so she was talking to some of her friends, and so then her friends came, and her friends brought their kids. Well, if ultimately I did something that blew this woman out. Suppose she and I had a romance that went bad and she's done, she's leaving. Well, her by herself might not be that big a deal. But it wasn't just her by herself. It was her and 3 of her kids. And 2 of her friends. And of the 2 friends, there are 5 kids. And then a little bit less directly, the sister of one of the friends and her kid. And when you got done with the direct connections that just went through this one woman, if I blew her out, it could cost me 17 to 20 clients. So would she be a dangerous person to have a romance with? Absolutely. Because if that goes bad, that could have been, at least in that time slot, that could have wiped out that part of the program. Because she was so well liked and so well connected that if that many people left, I mean, everyone's going to leave. I mean, basically you're shut down. Because she was that important. So in such a case, follow the same sort of careful stepping that you might with a team member. A couple of things to wrap up with. that aren't really related to having intimate relationships, romances, closer friendships in a business environment. And this is a general principle. Be safe for intimacy. Intimacy. Be safe for people to reveal stuff about themselves. Clients will only reveal personal information if they know that that information is safe. If they feel you will use what you learn against them, they won't share. If you ever do use what you learn against them, expect them to leave. So in culture, Ohana culture, one of the ideas in there is be a safe person, create a safe place. So having a safe place means that whatever I reveal here will not be a weapon to be used against me at some later point in time. There was one counselor, and this part was sad because he was enormously talented in one aspect of his counseling. But in a different aspect of his counseling, he had a reputation for using the secret, confidential stuff he learned about you against you when he had an agenda. So on one hand, yeah, he would help you tremendously. But on the other hand, after he helped you, the secret things he learned by helping you then become weapons in his armory. So later on, when he wants something from you, he uses that as leverage against you. Not threatening to reveal it to the world, but it's like you owe him, and he's going to use it. Sometimes, fortunately, not very artfully, to manipulate you. And sometimes he was so blunt instrument about his manipulations that it would blow people out. You say, whoa, wait a second. I was sharing that so you could help me. But now you're using it against me. Not cool. And he would lose a lot of people that way. Now, in the in-between time, between the helping and then the using it against them, he had tremendous loyalty because he helps people. But then sooner or later, it would flip and he would be using it against people to pursue his own agenda, which isn't always a bad agenda. He's often had a good agenda, but the way he went about it felt manipulative to a lot of people. And then what started to happen as word kind of was beginning to get around of what he was doing is fewer and fewer people were willing to share. And more he started needing new clients because he was incredibly talented at what he was good at. Because the people who now knew him didn't feel safe sharing with them. Did not feel safe. So you want to be safe for intimacy. If you want to know stuff, if you want people to know that they can tell you stuff, you have to be very non-judgmental. You have to create a very judgment-free environment. People have to know that the things that you learn are not going to be used as a weapon against them in a month, in a year, in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And that it's okay for them to share. Whether it's a client sharing with you a particular need the client has, and it's not just going to be, oh, I could use that to sell you stuff you don't really need. Now I know the buttons to push. Now, if you're using it to help fill a need, to help solve a problem because it's a legitimate service that you offer, well then that's okay because you're helping them solve the problem, which is probably why clients are revealing information to you in the first place, in case you can be part of the solution. But when they feel it's going to become part of a manipulation, not as interested. Which brings us to the end. You have to love your clients. So once more with the martial arts thing, because this is where this seemed to show up in a way that surprised the black belt. So I was having many late night conversations. In fact, she and I kind of developed a reputation for having late night conversations. It's very typical at my school after classes. People might hang out for half an hour or even an hour, hour and a half, just visiting, chit-chatting. She and I had a reputation that after the last of the people left, she and I would have these philosophical discussions. And fairly early on, one of her discussions was, how do I handle these students? And she's basically expressing her frustration of things she's seen me deal with, but I seem to handle it so easily. And she was just getting really frustrated and getting fed up with some. And she went, how do you do it? I said, well, the secret is fairly simple if you want to know what it is. I love my students. I love them. Love means I want the best for you. I want the best for my students. Love means I want to be the best for you. So if I love my students, I want to be a good teacher for them. And part of being a good teacher for them is I want them to know, number one, I care. Number two, I don't expect them to get it on the first try. It's one of the reasons why my own mother likes it when I teach her stuff, that she knows I expect to teach exactly the same thing at least 3 times before she gets it. And even then, I don't expect her to always remember all of it. Sometimes, in fact, I'll tell you, you can teach something and be very specific about it and underscore this point, like, this is the thing, get this point. And you specifically remember teaching that. Half the class specifically remembers you making a big deal about it. And there's a pretty decent chance that someone, even a chunk of that class, later on, I say, well, no one ever taught me that. And you think, you were there, I remember, we underscored, I even corrected you. No one ever taught me that. I said, what do? You grab some of my little pills and shake them. It's like, yeah, you just have to understand that's part of what people do. And you have to understand, those students will be very difficult to teach. Because whether you do teach them or don't teach them, they'll remember or not remember, it'll always be your fault. The ones you're there to teach are the ones that are there to learn. But a lot of those students eventually come around, which she understood because she used to be one of those students. Where she would try to tell the instructor, well, this is how you have to teach me. Well, you can't have a room full of 20 people and teach all 20 people a different way in one class. There's just not time to do that, even if you wanted to. You can only make a certain range of adjustments. You can't customize the 20 individuals in a 50-minute class. And when she was like, okay, all right. Love is I want the best for you. I want to be the best for you. And I want you to have transcendent joy. That means I want you to have some pleasure, but pleasure is not as important as your happiness. That I want you to be able to be happy with the totality of things. But bigger than happy, I want you to have joy. And joy is the kind of happiness that persists even when things are going bad. And transcendent joy is when you're so anchored to things that no matter what's going on in life, you have places you could choose to go to be centered and happy. And I want that for you. And the principles we teach, whether it's in my martial arts class or whether it's in these seminars, is for that. Whether you choose to do it or not, it's there for you. Whether in any given moment emotionally you're centered there or not, it's there for you to go to anytime you decide to. And that when you go there, you can center yourself on these are the principles. This is how things work. And even in the middle of the chaos, I can be okay. Now you can call it love. I call it love. You can call it respect. I'll call it respect sometimes, especially for guys. Sometimes in the professional environment, I'll use respect instead. Or honor. Now, I have slightly different definitions for respect and different definitions for honor, but you could use those words. Those are not inappropriate words. You say, well, if I'm going to show you respect, I want the best for you. I want to treat you well. I want to treat you appropriately. That's part of wanting to be the best for you. I want you to have good stuff. If I'm going to honor you, I want you to have the honor due to you. And that's part of the transcendent joy, being the best, wanting the best. And so you can connect them all up. So whether you call it love, whether you call it respect, whether you call it honor, that's up to you. Whatever word you want to attach to the definition is fine. Whatever you call it, you have to want the best for your clients. Whatever you call it, you have to want the best for your team members. Whatever you call it, you have to want the best for your coworkers. You have to want the best for your bosses. You want to have the best for your direct reports. And your clients need to know that. They need to feel that. They need to experience it for themselves. If they see it as a slogan up on the wall, but their experience with you doesn't match up with that, then it doesn't seem like it's true to them. In fact, now it begins to seem like it's a lie. And so you want to make sure that you're consistent with that. Now, in the moment that they're upset, they might not feel like it's true, but it's when they look back at it. And that's a powerful way to build lifelong loyalty in your clients. That's a powerful way to build lifelong loyalty in your team members. If they know they matter to you as whole people. And one of the challenges you run into when you're building any relationship is there's a very, very natural human tendency to get selfish. There's a very, very natural human tendency to react to situations. So a colleague and I were chit-chatting, and he was talking to one of his colleagues who got wiped out in the 2008 real estate crash. And these two men were talking, and they were talking about how well they were doing before the crash. And it mirrors something, I heard Keith Cunningham talking about being worth over $20 million and then crashing down to bankrupt and how he felt. But these two men had this kind of conversation that was shared with me. They say, we want to remember these times when we're poor. We want to remember what we felt like when we had millions, and we want to remember what it feels like to be bankrupt and to be starting over. And one of them is starting from scratch, lost his marriage, lost his family, after a period of kind of depressive behavior, whether he was clinically depressed or not, that's debatable, I suppose. But after a period of time of fairly depressive behavior, kind of, doing minimums, he's back to building up from scratch. The other guy that said, I need to get kind of more up to date on some of the new stuff. And so he went back to school. And these two guys who are basically starting over are both talking about how important it is to savor these downtimes. To savor these times of lack. To savor these times where I can recognize my net worth is not my self-worth. That whether I have $1 million in the bank or I have nothing in the bank. Whether I have enough money to do whatever I want, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to fill up my gas tank. That I need to understand I am who I am. People are not what they have. Nobody is. And as I remember this about me, to also remember this about other people. That if somebody else has or doesn't have, doesn't make them any more valuable or less valuable as human beings. We are not what we have. No one is. And it helps remind me to be respectful and to honor the ones who do not have. And then also, for the one who had depressive behavior for however long he had depressive behavior, I don't really know. For him to recognize people are not what they do. Human beings are human beings, not human doings. And that who you are may show up in what you do. But just because you're stuck in doing or not doing certain things because you were a practicing real estate professional and now you're not, and you don't really know what to do now, doesn't change who you are. Now you'll have to do something. You'll have to make some choices. But what you do, the buying and selling 1,000 units of real estate over the course of 10 years, that wasn't who you were, that's what you did. And then when you lose the business because the market crashes, you're not a different person. You're just not doing the same thing anymore. And so it was nice to see people with a similar attitude to mine. Because ultimately, so much of life boils down to healthy self-love. All this stuff we've been talking about with people, do it with yourself. You should want the best for you. You should want to be the best you for you. You love other people the way you love yourself. And you should want yourself to have transcendent joy. So this goes back thousands of years. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Old Testament, same idea. Love your neighbor as yourself. So have this whole kind of healthy love, this healthy relationship with yourself. And then take that healthy relationship out to other people. So this has been Yori 110, the business application. And I strongly recommend 101, at least touch on the entire matrix. You might be able to translate that to business very easily. And when you're ready to go deep, get all of the programs. You may find Dating by the Book to be useful and powerful. Pre-courting is an awful lot like a very comprehensive, unique positioning advantage for a relationship. You could even use that concept for your business. And of course, the direct Yori programs, but also the values workshop programs, and there's all kinds of stuff there that can help you. And if you want me to be your coach, without having to pay me to be your coach live, that's a very inexpensive way to do it. And just, my recommendation is to either, if you're really, really good at assimilating information auditorially, burn CDs, listen to them in your car, or depending upon the tech you have in your car, just put it all on a thumb drive, plug it in, or your MP3 player and plug it in, and just listen on your commute. So that way you have a powerful commute. If you're not accustomed to learning or an idea is revolutionary for you, listen to that same lesson all week. I've done that sometimes. I'll back up and I'll listen even to one 10-minute block 5 or 10 or 20 times before I move on. Just go, ooh, that's good stuff. I want that again. And so I can practically just turn right around and teach it. And sometimes it's mind-bending. Go, whoa, okay, that's important for me to get. And I'll listen to it again and again and again and again and again. Highly recommend it. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you transform. And that's how you take your entire life and your business and your romances and your family and everything in your life to the next level. Thank you for joining me for Yori 110. Hope that this has been a deeply insightful program for you. Good luck, God bless, and thank you.